Most educators would probably agree that the discipline among children and the maintenance of good order in school is one of the most pressing challenges confronting any education sector. Some of these challenges include varying levels of unacceptable behavior. In 2002, a manual entitled Guidelines for the Maintenance of Order and Discipline in School was prepared to offer guidance to head teachers and teachers. It is apparent by the number of issues being reported that teachers and head teachers are not making full use of this manual. On this first program, we'll discuss the role of the head teacher. Our guests are Assistant Chief Education Officer Dumati Singh and Curriculum Development Officer Melcita Bovell. I'm Pauline Stanford. Welcome to Issues in Education. Ladies, where do you think the line should be drawn between the authority of the teacher and the rights of the pupil?
Have you noticed in today's world how much we focus on rights? Everyone is talking about rights. The rights of the child, the right of women, the right to vote. In today's issue, perhaps we need to focus on the right of the school to maintain order and discipline. It is one of the fundamental rights that, having been attended to, will help to see all those other rights bear fruit.
I agree with that.
As we look at the right of the school to maintain order and discipline, I want to quote from the manual of the guidelines for maintenance of order and discipline. And in that manual, it says very clearly, it is the responsibility of the administrative and the non-administrative staff of the school to ensure that its climate is one in which order and discipline prevail. This indicates clearly that we're talking about all members of staff.
Can you explain a bit non-administrative staff?
Interesting that you should ask that, Pauline, because when we talk of discipline, we focus on head teacher and senior teachers and teachers in the school. But do you know that this manual is actually saying that every cleaner, every guard,
The canteen sellers,
every adult person on the school plant is responsible for the maintenance of order and discipline?
In what sense?
Well, it is a shared and collective responsibility. Surely later on we can discuss the role of the head teacher in all of this. But no one person can be all over the school plant at the same time. And so you want students and pupils and children to understand that all adult persons have got a role to play in the maintenance of that order and discipline. You know, we talk very often it takes a village to raise a child. In this case, it takes a whole school plant to discipline a child.
and so it's very important for all members, parents, teachers, head teachers, even the students, to be aware of the manual of guidelines for maintenance of order and discipline in schools. All should be aware of what is in this manual.
You see, Pauline, in 2002, when this manual came out, it came out of a lot of consultation where persons in the Ministry of Education would have examined what is actually happening in school and recognizing that where you had stronger leadership, that you had better discipline in schools. And we understand that we cannot only allow schools with stronger leadership to be successful and to have the students in those schools reach the highest heights that they're capable of. We need, in our quest for equity, to ensure that the discipline is maintained in all schools across the country. And so, hence the manual for the maintenance of order and discipline.
Am I correct if I said that each school should be in receipt of this manual?
Each school would have received a copy of this manual when it was first printed. And obviously, if schools don't have, the departments can furnish. But yes, it's important that each school have a copy of this manual.
It is a fact that you have, and many teachers have individual copies. But more so, because we're in the technology age, you can go on the Ministry of Education website. I'm so proud to say that. You can go on the Ministry of Education website and you can download this manual. So it means now it is not just in the domain of persons within the school system. Each and every home can download this or just upload and examine it and have discussions around the table.
Okay. And I think the manual deals with, you have one topic, the right of the school to maintain order and discipline. Actions should be determined by, and I believe they list some of the things.
Oh, yes,
here.
yes. Surely it has to be age appropriate for a start. And definitely it has to be connected with the offense.
Yes.
Because one can hardly give the same punishment from if I give you a cross eye, from if I literally take out my hands and give you a slap. So it has direct connection to the nature of the offense.
And the frequency also.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's the first time I am engaging in this inappropriate behavior, then I should be counseled and, you know, told that this behavior is not appropriate instead of having other forms of discipline meted out.
I'm so glad Mrs. Singh made that clear, because it is a process. Disciplining a child is a process. It's not a case as one day you just pick up a pencil that does not belong to you and we are going to suspend you from school.
Yes.
It begins with your classroom teacher pulling you across and giving you the necessary counseling, taking you up to the higher levels within the school system, and finally to the head teacher. And then, if needs be, to call in the parents and other members of the community to offer support.
And obviously, when this happens, parents should be informed, because you're not waiting until the 10th time and then you're telling the parent, and the parent say, oh, my child has never done this, because the parent is not aware that the child was misbehaving, you know. So the parents should be brought on board from the first time.
You know, within this last academic year, we have introduced in a very formal way the parent counseling sessions, where you're having parent conferencing. So you have an opportunity to share with parents what their children have been involved in over the term, be that academic, be that discipline, be that whatever the child is struggling with at school. And so when you have the parent-teacher conferences, it gives another opportunity to examine the maintenance of order and discipline. But you know, Ms. Stanford, we have been speaking about this order and discipline as though it's within the confines of the school property. And I particularly want to say that it goes far and beyond the confines of the school property. You know, you are a student of the school regardless of whether it's 4:30 in the morning or whether it's midnight or midday. And so the duration of the day, the time and place is not limited. You are still a student of the school. And so as you bear the good name of the school, you have to build the good name of the school.
And that is why parents should be aware of what is in the manual, so they know what are the accepted behaviors and what are the non-accepted behaviors. And so they themselves can groom their children even before the children come to school.
Now, very often, Ms. Stanford, we talk of the head teacher as an instructional leader. We focus a lot on the ability of the head teacher to guide the curriculum and the delivery of that curriculum in school. But no child is going to progress, no child is going to learn if that child is in a very much indisciplined environment. And so it is the role of the administrator, the number one person in that institution, to ensure that the code of conduct and the disciplinary policy of the school is not just adhered to, but is formulated. So the head teacher takes a lead role in the formulation of the policies to match the guidelines that have been given. Because as much as the guidelines are there, they're generic in nature. And so each individual school will have to strip those guidelines and create school rules. And you know how we do this, miss. We do school rules from way down, participation with the children themselves. We get them involved in formulating those rules because you know if they formulate them, they're more willing to adhere to them.
And also the rules should have what are the sanctions for breaking rules. So at the same time, when the rules are formulated, students are aware of what may happen should they not abide by the rules.
Who are formulating these rules?
The teachers and the students, and in collaboration with the parents.
Sorry, I should say, who is formulating?
It's a collaborative effort with the teachers, the students, the parents, and so they put up what they call their class rules, and this is in keeping with, of course, the manual.
You know, Ms. Stanford, when we, as a Ministry of Education, ensure that we have partnerships such as parent-teachers associations, they're there not just to support the school and to raise funds and things to do with finances, but they're there to give support to the whole administration. And so one of the things they want to focus on is helping this body of students to get the best they can out of their education process. And one of it is to ensure that they have some amount of discipline maintained.
Mm-hmm.
So we have parents who are going to have a say. Because let's face it, children come from a wide cross-section of homes and communities and backgrounds, and every home has its own different way of maintaining discipline and order. And so when you come into the one space, you need to have rules that each person has to adhere to help our children, first of all, to gel and become one school.
Okay, so let's discuss some of the roles of the head teacher.
Well, in addition to the formulation of the code of conduct and the disciplinary policy for the school, it is the head teacher's responsibility to ensure that the code of conduct and the disciplinary policy are implemented. Because you could have the good rules on the wall and so, and then the rules are always breached, the policy is breached, and nobody pays attention except when it happens to a child or a particular time or so on. Miss gets vexed or so on, decide that I'm going to enforce the rule today. But it must be always enforced, and it must be done impartially, you know.
You know, when we talk of discipline, we say it must not only be done, it must appear to be done. And one of the things that the head teacher is tasked with, along with the senior management team of the school, but of course led by the head teacher, it is the maintenance of a misdemeanor book. So this misdemeanor book is a ledger that is kept in the school that clearly documents when we have behaviors that are unacceptable. So it's you document the behavior, you document the time, and perhaps the witnesses that were around at the moment, and then you clearly document what action was taken. Action such as, was this child counseled with? Was this child, did we have to send for the parent? Was it just enough to call this child aside and say, this is unacceptable, and then this never happens again? So this misdemeanor book not only documents the day-to-day happenings in the school, but it gives us a track record of an individual child. Remember, Mrs. Singh, earlier we were saying about the frequency with which something will occur. Well, if you have the misdemeanor book, then you can look back and you can see between September to November, this child has been called to the office 4 times for maybe taking away a child's lunch money. Then you realize this is a practice, this is a habit. We have to step in. The counseling has got to reach a higher level. We have got to get the parents involved. And so this book plays a crucial part in the maintenance of that order and discipline.
Critical to students' exhibiting acceptable behavior is the head teacher modeling the desired behavior, social and professional behavior. For example, you don't want students coming in late into the classrooms because it will affect the other students, it disrupt the class and all of that. And in a similar way, the head teacher must model that behavior and be at school on time early and get all the teachers also to do so, because very often when you go to school and you see students attending school late is because the teachers are late themselves, and so critical to the students modeling the right behavior. Teachers must do that. The head teacher must do that.
In a number of schools across Guyana, we find that they've got different policies as students would come late. In one school, you will find perhaps the head teacher waiting by the gate, and this signals to the students that definitely we're not happy about your walking in late. Other places, we have prefects writing down the names of those students. There are times when they close the gate, in 5-7 minutes periods, and allow a build-up, document, and then let them in the school. All these are measures to help to signal to children how important it is, not just to be regular at school, but to be punctual. And of course, there are underlying causes for this. As Ms. pointed out, if the child is late, that child is all ruffled and is unable to pay attention. But in all of this, remember we were saying that all the adults have got a role to play. And so the guards at those gates, now I know that most of our schools have got day guards, even though not all. And we're moving towards ensuring that we have enough guards at all schools. But at the moment, those schools that have got guards, they too play a role in helping the children to get that level of discipline of coming to school on time.
Ms. Stanford, in addition to modeling the desired behavior, it is the responsibility of the head teacher to ensure that conflict resolution and social skills are taught to students. Students must be aware of how to behave in social situations. For example, Mrs. Bovell and I are sitting close to each other, and if accidentally she hits me, I must know that it was an accident and I shouldn't start coughing out on her. And at the same time, she knows what to say to me so that we can sort that out. So at present, we have the Health and Family Life Education Program going. We have the courtesy rules and maxims in school. It's very important that head teachers try to enforce the social skills in schools and have it like children have it as a way of life. I know that if I have done this, I must say sorry or excuse me and these kinds of things.
Okay. We have another rule here. Refrain from carrying, using, or being in possession any weapon, illegal drug, or prohibited electronic device in the school or on the school compound. Now, if a student is found with those things, what happens?
Well, those are very, very harsh terms, Ms. Stanford. And for all the children that we'll find perhaps 1% of the students who will, from time to time, carry an illegal weapon in school. I mean, collectively, we've got about 100 years of education experience among the three of us. But I want to say that in my whole lifetime, I have not been able to name 5 children. I'm looking on one hand to say, I know you had a gun, you had a gun, you had a gun.
No, I'm saying just in case
or a
that
knife.
should happen, what the head
The
teacher should
HM
do.
must the head teacher must report promptly to the relevant authority, right?
That is?
Yes. The Department of Education, in the case of a gun, you may want to go to the police because this is strictly not accepted,
No, I'm just getting to determine what the head teacher should do, okay?
Oh, yes. Ms. Singh was perfectly in order. You report the matter. But even before you report the matter, you need to get that student to the office and to have the students in a protected and at the same time confined space, a space like the head teacher's office. Because you need to start off by asking the child, why do you have this? Where did it come from? Because we have heard cases before God forbid, I don't know which is true or not, that a child walked on the street and picked up a weapon
Yeah.
that was lying in the grass. You could have gone to school and discover that you have something in your bag that you didn't necessarily put in your bag to go to school. So you want to give that child the opportunity to express this. And the first phone call is to the parent. Because anytime a child has done something that can warrant the intervention of the law, you want to have the parent present or somebody who is representing the parents at that moment. Now, when you make that call to the parents can say, I'm unable to get there before 2 hours. I am sending somebody who lives nearby and asking teacher X or teacher Y to stand in for me in that moment so that the child is comforted. Yes, I am in trouble. Yes, they have to call the police because I have a loaded gun. But then, at the same time, that child knows that I have the surrogate parent standing in for me.
Okay. The next role, maintain high academic and non-academic standards.
Well, this is perhaps one that everyone is a little comfortable with. Everyone understands that it is the role of the head teacher to ensure that students perform at a high level. And you know, it is why we're having this conversation, because we know that if you have a disciplined environment, then it helps children to learn a lot better. So this whole concept of discipline is fundamental towards getting that higher education, that better quality of education. Because, you know, as we talk about this and we talk about modeling good behavior, we must admit that in our society today, we've got different parenting skills. And we have some parents who are unable to model the right behavior for their children. In some cases, because they don't know it themselves, and in other cases, because their lifestyle, their job description demands that they're not as often with their children as they ought to be. And I'm always very particular about this, because there are some jobs that are very, very demanding. And yes, these might be high-profile jobs, but it will mean that your child is left to be brought up, in a lot of instances, by the nanny. And so a lot of things that you will not stand for, your child will exhibit that kind of behavior at school. And then people ask the first question, who are your parents? And very often, the parents are not wholly to be blamed. It's just a situation, and children have a tendency to mirror behavior of passers-by. They travel in public transport system. They mirror behavior of other people with not a clear understanding of where these lead to. And so it is the role of the head teacher to be vigilant and to cause his or her teachers to be vigilant also, so that we have a keen eye on the student, so we're able to see when the lack of discipline is causing the grades to slip.
Okay, Ms. Singh.
It's very important for head teachers to screen visitors. No visitor should be allowed to just come off the road and visit a child or a teacher. All visitors must go through the head teacher. And, you know, then the head teacher determines whether you can see this teacher or whether I will communicate what is it you want. If it's a case where the visitor is allowed to see the teacher, then either two things happen for the child. The child or the teacher comes to the office to meet with the visitor, or the visitor is escorted to the classroom.
So you're saying that visitors to school should approach the head teacher's office
They
first?
must. They must go to the head teacher. The head teacher should know at any time who is visiting the school. You know.
You see, Miss Stanford, when we build a culture of children in a school not seeing strangers walking around, when they do spot a stranger in the school, they recognize this as irregular. This as not safe. This warrants us running, and I literally mean that, running to the head teacher's office, running to the classroom next door to say, Miss, Sir, I noticed such and such a looking person in the corridor or in the classroom, or even talking with another student. Because what happens is somebody comes in and you swear it's the father of the child, and he holds the child's hand and he's on the way out. But you don't know what the child has been told, and the child is being forced to be kept quiet, and you're allowing that person to exit. So we have got to create the culture in the school that we do not have visitors who are unattended. You know, you go to offices and other places of work, and they give you a badge to wear,
Yes.
so that people know that you are not a member here, but you're here duly authorized. In like manner, we just don't want these visitors to have a badge. We want them to be escorted. It might seem like be demanding, but the lives of the children
So
depend
who
on
will
it.
escort these visitors?
Sometimes that becomes a little more challenging than other times, because one is asking the head teacher or the secretary in the office or the clerk nearby or a teacher who is not in attendance at the moment to escort a teacher to a classroom. And when that seems impossible, then we will ask someone to bring the child or the teacher in the school to the place of the head teacher's office, because we can't be too careful.
And of course, nothing is wrong with asking the visitor to wait for a while. Say it's not the appropriate time, I'm not getting anyone to accompany you to the class or to send a message to the class. So can you wait for a while until I can arrange that? Nothing is wrong with asking the visitor to wait for a while.
And by extension, you know, Ms. Stanford, we are talking about making rules for our schools. And we need to tell our parents that unless the building is on fire, that these are the times when
Yes.
visitors are really allowed. Because you don't want to disrupt that child from that crucial lesson that is taking place.
Okay. Another role for the head teacher listed here: attend school regularly and punctually. Explain.
We're talking that we would want the students, all learners, to attend school regularly and punctually. And of course, when you want that to happen, you must make the classroom environment exciting. You must make children want to come to school.
So the head teacher has to motivate the
Pro-
children.
provide that kind of environment, yes. And in
And how
addition,
can they motivate the teachers to come to school, the children to come to school?
Well, you know, we always talk about rewards and punishment. But very often we focus heavily on the punishment and not the rewards. What we have to do is refocus so that rewards become a little more prominent in our scheme of things at school. So I have been involved in Spelling Bee last week. I get put up on the stage and my head teacher speaks well about me and what credit I've brought to the school, and the whole school applauds me. Good, I feel good. So we need to encourage children. We need to encourage all aspects of curriculum and extracurricular activities to be focused on, so that each child has his or her moment in the sun. Each child has an opportunity to feel good up on stage literally and figuratively, so that when we start doing that, children start feeling special. Their self-esteem rise. And you know, Pauline, I want to say, as we talk self-esteem, that sometimes we have something that is bigger than self-esteem. You know, in today's parallax, young people say, been there, done that. When you have been in a situation and you have tasted success, there's nothing that can stop you. And so this is the kind of environment that the head teacher needs to create, so that every child can be successful. Now, I might not be the top child for mathematics. I might not be the top child for Spanish, but put me on the track and I could run a 800 faster than anybody else in the whole district. So I have something to be proud of. So I feel good about myself.
Yeah. At present, the School Welfare Services is awarding schools where students would have made 98% attendance over a one academic year period. All these things encourage students to come to school, because this is not only at the school level now, but it has gone higher than that. It's bigger than that. So head teachers need to be resourceful, to find ways of getting children to want to come to school.
Okay. Another role, maintaining personal hygiene of a high standard and practice good grooming.
And of course, this relates back to the model that the teachers give to their students. You know, the role model we're talking about. Because if you want students to practice good hygiene and good grooming, and so then teachers must appear properly dressed, properly groomed, and head teachers must see this. You know, if the head teacher observes that the teacher is not properly dressed, then the head teacher knows that she can ask the teacher, maybe if it's the first time, say, well, you know, you're not appropriately dressed today. Maybe tomorrow you need to change. And, you know, it's all in the code of conduct for teachers, you know, the mode of dress and so. So we want students to come to school properly groomed. It starts from the head and the teachers.
In addition, we have from time to time in just about any school, you are going to find children that are somewhat underprivileged.
Yes.
And there is always a support system in every school where they're looking out for the welfare of students that are a little underprepared for school, so that they can offer them the support. You would have noticed that it is now acceptable norm that school uniforms are being given to each and every student across the length and breadth of Ghana. But in my enthusiasm to come to school, well, I stamped the whole iron on my pants and I got a nice triangular piece out. So if that was my only trousers to come to school, I am now dependent on that group within my school system, those persons who are looking out for the welfare of students. You know, I can remember one time in a school that I was at where we collected uniforms of children who were leaving the school, because they would have had new uniforms, perhaps 3-4 of them in September, and by the end of September, October, you're leaving. We collect those uniforms and we keep them in storage for, you know, students who are less privileged, or perhaps when a student gets wet a day and turns up to school soaking wet, you have a way of helping those students. So when you talk of good grooming, it begins, as Ms. Singh points out, with the modeling from our head teachers and the teachers, but it goes further to our role and our responsibility for each and every student, so that each child feels comfortable among the others, so that he or she can learn best.
And I think at times that included the teacher even combing the child's hair.
Yes.
At times.
Well, that
In the lower grades, we see that, yes.
you see that from a loving standpoint in the lower grades, and when they get older, you see that from a disciplinary standpoint, because there are some hairstyles that are certainly not schoolgirlish, and there are times when the boys would like to come with a little extra mustache and a little extra beard, and you have to spend the coaching time to help them to present themselves better and more school appropriate.
Okay. Another rule here, we have accept responsibility for his or her own behavior.
Well, I think if you are man enough to do it, you are man enough to own up to it. And when you are man enough to own up to it, you are man enough to accept the consequences of doing it. And that begins from the tiniest thought. And as we're talking about this, we are trying to encourage parents in their home to help children to accept their responsibility, to admit when they're wrong, to be able to say I'm sorry, to be able to move on. And that begins from the cradle, literally, to the grave. And so in every school environment, you've got different strata of teachers. You've got different levels of students, whether they be prefects, they be monitors, they be grade 10 and 11 students as opposed to grade 7 students, they be grade 6 as opposed to grade 2 students. And so you've got all levels there. And at the end of the day, we need to show that respect for each other. And once you start having mutual respect around, then people are going to feel a little more comfortable to own up to when they're wrong. And as I said, face the consequences too.
In addition to that, sometimes teachers need to take, and parents too, need to take time to inquire as to why the child would have done this. Because sometimes in the child's thinking, this was the right thing to do. You know, I would have carried out a little experiment and I discovered something, but the adults around me think that this was inappropriate behavior. You know, so sometimes adults need to take time out to listen to the voices of children, and sometimes when they say to you why they have done that, in as much as it might look inappropriate, you have an understanding of the thinking process whilst they were actually engaging in the activity.
Ladies, I'll tell you, I was in the office and the bell was rung. This is the fire alarm. And I was livid. And I wish I could have found who it was. I stepped out 2 minutes after and I saw the young man at welfare. And by now, I'm up to here with it, and I say, but I have to be calm now, I'm dealing with a child. I said, could you tell me why you decided to pull that when you see it said emergency? And the child looked me in the face and he said, for years I wanted to know what it sounded like.
You understand the curiosity of it?
And so the moment he said that, I had to back off. I mean, I was all out for punishment. But when he said that, I had to take the other angle. I had to sit with him now and counsel with him, and was late for a meeting in the process because I really had to counsel with him. Let him see the consequences of doing something like that.
Ms. Singh, as Assistant Chief Education Officer, Nursery, what is the level of indiscipline at nursery schools?
It's not alarming. I can't imagine children being indisciplined at that level, because and that's where I came from when I said to you, you need to find out what is it they're thinking of, because very often when it appears as though it's an inappropriate behavior, it's because their thinking process just went wild and they thought, if I do this, I put this like this, I can get this result instead. And they don't know that they're doing a wrong. At the nursery level or the early childhood level, it's easy to discipline because you talk to them, you talk over and over and over, you let them know the consequences. And you hear them repeating, don't touch this. This is dangerous, and this is not a toy, so it's very easy to discipline at the early childhood level. And I guess that is why the maintenance of order and discipline says that you don't beat a child that is younger than grade 3. Grade 3, yes, because you expect that at that age, at that level, it's easy to groom them out of the inappropriate behavior into more appropriate behavior.
So you could say we have the highest incidence of indiscipline at the secondary level?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that, but when we have indiscipline at the secondary level, it means something went wrong with the grooming from the early childhood stage coming up. And Mrs. Boville would have said earlier that when parents are not there, or depending on the parents' their own early childhood practices, they themselves may have spoiled the children in hitting them, telling them bad words, and so by the time they get up to maybe grade 5, grade 6, they don't feel worthy, you know.
You know, when I read the manual, I am always intrigued when it talks about looking at someone cross-eyed. So you just give a harsh look, or you turn up your nose, or you twist your mouth, and it focuses from that level of misbehavior. And unless we start to deal with it, as we like to say, nip it in the bud, unless we start to deal with it from the small levels, it will not escalate. So I really agree with Mrs. Singh when she said it is about how their behaviors were managed from early childhood. Because if we think, oh, he's so cute, oh, the curls are so lovely, and so when he sucks his teeth at you, you know, and you're thinking, oh, he's too cute, oh, he's so sweet.
And parents have
And you
a way,
ignore that.
your parents have a way also of saying he can grow it out. But
Yes.
he wouldn't.
They don't grow it out. Well, they grow that
They grow
level.
into it.
They grow that level, and they grow into another level of indiscipline. So again, it comes down to nurturing. It is from the very early stages. And I like when Mrs. Singh talked about us counseling with them. But you see, it's also counseling with their parents. Because when we accept one sort of behavior at the school premises, when that child goes home, the parents are allowing that child to do that cute behavior, because everything is cute when you're 3 and 5. But when you become 6 and 7, it stops being cute. And the so-called cute start appearing to be rude. And so you have to me, you have to have that open mind to move away from your angelic little darlings and get straight up and deal with it. So as much as you love, you have to nurture and discipline at the same time.
Ladies, thank you for being here on Issues in Education. Goodbye.